Right now, as you're watching this video, something very serious is happening in the world. Tensions in the Middle East have been rising rapidly after recent military strikes between the United States, Israel, and Iran. The conflict has already triggered missile attacks across the region and raised fears that it could spiral into something much bigger. In fact, some analysts are starting to ask a question that sounds like something out of a history book. Could this become the beginning of World War III? Now, before we panic and start building underground bunkers in our back gardens, let's take a step back and ask a serious question. If a global war actually started tomorrow, what would really happen? Not in movies, not in video games, but in the real world. Because modern warfare looks very different from the wars our grandparents remember. The first shots of World War III probably wouldn't come from tanks or soldiers. They would come from keyboards. Yes, cyber warfare. Within seconds, countries could launch massive digital attacks against each other's infrastructure. Power grids might suddenly shut down. Banks could freeze. Internet networks might collapse. Imagine waking up one morning and your phone says, no signal. Your bank app says, unavailable. And every airport in your country suddenly cancels all flights. Congratulations. You might be experiencing the opening minutes of a global conflict. Modern cyber warfare is so powerful that it could disrupt entire countries before a single missile is launched. And once that happens, things move very quickly. Within hours, military forces around the world would begin mobilizing. Fighter jets would scramble into the skies. Naval fleets would move towards strategic areas. Missile defense systems would activate. And satellites orbiting thousands of kilometers above Earth would begin tracking every launch signature on the planet. Because the moment one country launches a missile, every other country has only minutes to respond. Some missiles can travel across continents in under 30 minutes, which means world leaders sometimes have less time to decide how to respond than it takes you to watch this video. No pressure, right? Now, at first, the conflict would likely stay conventional. That means fighter jets, drones, cruise missiles, and naval battles. The kind of warfare we've already seen in recent conflicts, but on a much larger scale. Entire regions could become active battle zones almost overnight. Major cities might activate emergency systems. Air defense systems would try to intercept incoming missiles. And millions of people could suddenly find themselves in the middle of a global crisis. But here's where things get complicated, because modern wars aren't fought in just one place. They happen everywhere, in the air, on land, at sea, in cyberspace, and even in space. Yes, space. Satellites are now one of the most important parts of modern warfare. They control GPS systems, communication networks, missile detection systems. Without satellites, modern militaries would struggle to operate. So if a global war escalated far enough, some countries might try to disable each other's satellites. That could mean anti-satellite missiles or cyber attacks targeting space infrastructure. And if enough satellites were destroyed, the consequences could affect everyone on Earth. Navigation systems could fail. Global communications might collapse. Even weather forecasting could become unreliable. Basically, Google Maps might suddenly stop working, which, let's be honest, would already cause chaos in half the world. But the biggest fear surrounding any global conflict is something much more dangerous: nuclear weapons. Since the end of World War II, nuclear weapons have acted as a terrifying kind of balance. Countries avoid using them because they know the consequences would be catastrophic. But if a conflict escalated far enough, the possibility would still exist. A single nuclear weapon could destroy an entire city in seconds. The explosion would generate temperatures hotter than in the surface of the sun. Shockwaves would flatten buildings kilometers away. And radioactive fallout could contaminate entire regions. But the real danger isn't just the explosions themselves, it's what comes after. Scientists warn about something called nuclear winter. If enough nuclear weapons detonated around the world, massive firestorms could send huge amounts of smoke and debris into the atmosphere. That smoke could block sunlight from reaching the Earth. Global temperatures could drop dramatically. Crops might fail. Food shortages could spread across the planet. Even countries far away from the war zones could suffer devastating consequences, which is why global nuclear strategy today focuses heavily on deterrence. The idea is simple and terrifying. If everyone has nuclear weapons, no one wants to use them, because doing so could mean the end of civilization as we know it. But wars aren't only fought with weapons, they're also fought with economies. If a global conflict erupted tomorrow, global trade could collapse almost instantly. Shipping routes might close, oil supplies could be disrupted. In fact, we've already seen how regional conflicts can impact global energy markets. Recent tensions in the Middle East have already disrupted shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important oil routes. Now imagine that disruption happening worldwide. Fuel prices could skyrocket, supply chains could break down, factories might shut down due to shortages of materials. Within weeks, the global economy could enter one of the worst crises in human history. And that's when the real impact would start reaching everyday people. Food prices could rise dramatically. Electricity shortages might occur. Healthcare systems could become overwhelmed. Life as we know it would change almost overnight. But here's something important to remember. Despite all the terrifying possibilities we've discussed, world leaders spend enormous amounts of time trying to prevent this exact scenario. Diplomacy, international treaties, military alliances. All of these systems exist for one main reason: to stop conflicts from reaching the point where no one can control them anymore. Because history has already shown us how destructive global wars can be, and the next one would be far more advanced and far more dangerous. But humanity has also shown something else throughout history: the ability to survive. Even after the most devastating conflicts, societies rebuild, cities recover, technology advances, and life eventually moves forward. So while the idea of World War III is frightening, it's also a reminder of how important cooperation and diplomacy are in preventing it. Because the future of our planet may depend on avoiding that one moment, when tensions go just a little too far. And that leaves one final question. If a global conflict really did begin tomorrow, what do you think the world would look like 5 years later? Would humanity recover, or would the world be permanently changed? Let me know what you think.